Morning. So I wanted to let everyone know that we are recording this webinar so that people who are enrolled but not able to join us this morning are going to be able to watch the video later, and everyone will get a link to that video shortly after this presentation. So this morning we are talking about Project Ready and scheduling your day. And within that kind of concept of scheduling your day, we're going to talk about some of the general scheduling expectations, the importance of gathering student data, how we do that, and then how we use that data to form small groups. So those are the big concepts we'll be covering today. So there are a lot of pieces to the Project Ready curriculum. So we're going to start just kind of talking about those little pieces and the general expectation for full implementation of the Project Ready curriculum. And I should clarify that Project Ready is kind of the general term for everything that we're doing here, and the curriculum itself is called Joyful Discovery. So you might hear those two used interchangeably, but we often say Project Ready to refer to just the curriculum piece, which is actually Joyful Discoveries. So in general, in your day, we know every preschool is different, every schedule is different, but whether you have a half-day program or a full-day program, for the most part, you have students in your class for about 90 to 120 minutes where they're able to really work on academic time. So we really, in general, in most of the classrooms that we're in, we want to see about 90 minutes daily of academic time. And in those 90 minutes, we recommend about 15 to 20 minutes for your whole group activity that happens daily. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that is in a minute. And then setting aside about 60 minutes every day for your small groups and center time, with each of those just being about 10 to 15 minutes per group. So those are really quick, fun, engaging activities that move quickly. So in general, we're talking about kind of a 90-minute academic time here. So this is called our curriculum overview graphic is what we call it. And most of the graphics that we have in this presentation today, you can find on our website within our curriculum guide. So if you're wondering where to find these pieces, you'll be able to find our curriculum guide on the website, and that's where most of these graphics are here. So you can see at the top of this graphic, we want you to start every day with your whole group meeting, and that's about 15 to 20 minutes. So this is where you're really laying the foundation for the day. You're really hitting the theme, you're reading a great book together, and you're using the vocabulary that's really going to go throughout the whole day in the classroom, in the small groups and centers, and particularly in the dramatic play area. So the whole group lesson can be either the 1, 2, 3 shared story, which happens pretty much every day, or the shared writing piece. And you'll see about 4 of those per theme. So in the whole group setting for about 15 to 20 minutes, you're either doing your shared story routine or your shared writing routine. And then within the small groups and center time, we have small groups, oral language small groups. The ones outlined in blue are theme related. So Sammy, the wordless books, the math follow-up lessons, and the 1, 2, 3 storybook reread. Those are all centered on the theme for whatever unit you're working on. And then we have some small group oral language things, telling terrific tales, which is not related to the theme, and then alphabetics is also not related to the theme, but that is a small group that we implement during that time. And then we also have some additional intervention materials that Maria really covered last week in her webinar about supporting students with exceptional needs, playful interventions and basic concepts. We'll touch on those just a little bit in this webinar and in next week's webinar. But for now, we're really going to focus on those other pieces there. So just a quick review of what those pieces are and what those look like. Our 1, 2, 3 story is a whole group activity. It always starts with a phonological awareness activity, a language time where we're kind of moving and doing rhyming or a fun language play that relates to the theme. And then the teacher does dialogic reading with a book that also relates to the theme. So really active reading where students are doing some things before, during, and after the reading. They're answering questions and they're really engaged in the reading that the teacher's doing. And the other whole group activity is the shared writing. And like I said before, we have 4 of these that come up in each unit, and they really are based on our Ohio Early Learning Standards. So students are giving ideas and the teacher is writing them down. So they are really kind of getting that overview concept of what writing is and what it looks like and how to get your ideas out and put them down on paper. So you see some students here with their shared writing in the background. Our alphabetics, we've made a kind of a big overhaul of that, and we do have a webinar that focuses just on alphabetics. And we are primarily using books here now for alphabetics. And this is a homogeneous group. So you want to have your students in this small group based on their skill needs. So here you see some students all working on making the letter T with their little wiki sticks. So alphabetics is a piece of it. And of our small group oral language routines, we have the 1, 2, 3 reread, which is a small group. Heterogeneous groups, we'll talk a little bit more about that. There's always a fun follow-up activity, usually a craft. So this is a picture from our astronomy follow-up. We do know that of our oral language routines, the 1, 2, 3 reread, Sammy, and telling terrific tales, this one really is the most powerful. So students are having a chance to read or listen to one of the stories that was introduced in the whole group already, and they can hear it again, and they have a little bit more opportunity to engage and talk about it because they're in this small group. Another small group oral language is telling terrific tales. So that's our puppets and our classic tales. And the final oral language group is Sammy, or our wordless books. So they are telling the story of a wordless book there together. We also have math small groups, which, like alphabetics, are homogeneous. So we want students in groups based on their skill level. So those are all of the pieces there. So here's kind of a graphic with a breakdown of those small groups and how we want to put our students together in those small groups. So the two where we really want to focus on students' skill levels and putting them in groups with students of similar skill levels are alphabetics and the math follow-up lesson. So we really want to be targeting where our students are there by placing them in groups with students with similar needs and similar skill levels. Our other small groups, the 1, 2, 3 storybook reread, Sammy, telling terrific tales, those we really want students in groups of varying ability levels. So these can be formed more organically, almost as an invitation to kind of come and play together. And we will cover what that looks like later. So these, we want students to be able to learn from each other and to hear from students with more skills, more oral language skills or less oral language skills, everyone in there together. So this graphic looks a little bit complicated, but it kind of helps you to think about planning for your whole week and planning for your day. Again, this is available in our curriculum guide, which is on our website. So this is just a reminder of your whole group routines, your 1, 2, 3 shared story routine, and your shared writing. It breaks down those small group routines that we just covered and gives some expectations on how often you want to make sure you're getting to those. And then there's a breakdown here again of kind of planning your day with a reminder of like a 15 to 20-minute time period for sharing that story, that 1, 2, 3 shared story, and then about an hour for your small groups. Okay. Here is just kind of a sample model of how you might fit all of those pieces into your day. So it just kind of breaks down what one teacher might be responsible for and what another teacher might be responsible for. Now, not every classroom has 2 teachers, so this will not fit for every classroom. Some classrooms have more, some have fewer, but this is just kind of one idea of how you can fit all of these pieces into one day here. So you see that teacher 1 here is responsible for doing that whole group circle time. And on this day, it's a shared story that they'll be doing together. And then that teacher is going to be responsible during that 60-minute kind of center and free play and small group time. This teacher, teacher 1, is going to be responsible for the alphabetics small groups. So that teacher is going to do a 15-minute alphabetics group, another 15-minute alphabetics group. They're going to take about 15 minutes in there to do some center support. So just kind of those general classroom supports that happen, and then another 15-minute alphabetics routine. Amy, your video popped on. Is there anything you wanted to say here?
I just wanted to clarify, when we say 2 teachers, we really mean we know there's always a lead teacher, but then any other adult in the classroom.
Mhm.
So when we say teacher two, this could be an instructional assistant, could be a volunteer. And I just wanted to clarify that, like in our project work, we've had all sorts of different people be that teacher too. Most often it's the teaching assistant or the instructional aide. So I just wanted to clarify that because the materials and the routines in Project Ready are very straightforward and very teachable to people even who might not have as much educational background. So we've had volunteers, we've even had high school students sometimes learn some of these routines and do them with children. So I just wanted to make that clear because I don't think any of our classrooms actually have two, full certified teachers, but
No, no,
so
absolutely. And, teacher one doesn't even often is not a certified teacher. So yeah, like you
correct.
said, the
Yeah.
routines are very teachable, and we've covered that in other webinars as well, how everything is kind of a routine. So you learn that routine and then you apply it, and it goes really well.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so here in this space, you can see teacher two during that whole group circle time is going to be responsible for classroom duties. So checking backpacks or just, helping students to sit quietly on the rug, whatever is needed during that time. And then teacher two is going to be during the oral language small group routine. It looks like they're going to be doing telling terrific tales and some center support and a math small group. So that teacher is doing kind of a variety of activities there. So two rounds of telling terrific tales, the puppets, and one round of a math small group, and 15-minute time where they are just kind of doing general classroom support, maybe taking students to the restroom. Sometimes that has to happen in preschool. So there's time in their day for all of those pieces during that academic time. And remember, we talked about how the math small group we want to think about as kind of a skill level. So we want to set out with a plan in our day. Who are we going to hit during this math small group time? Who are we going to really make sure we are seeing for that small group? And then the oral language group, the telling terrific tales. Again, we do want to think about student needs, but that can be more of an organic, hey, we're going to do puppets. Who wants to come join us for puppets kind of invitation there, if that makes sense. So we'll get into that a little bit more here later. So we've been talking about this idea of kind of homogeneous groups and heterogeneous groups, and some that we really need to have kind of a careful plan for ahead of time, and some small groups where we can just kind of invite students to join us. But that kind of leads us to the question of how do we decide how we set up these homogeneous groups? How do we know who is going to be in a group together? How do we put students into these groups so that we can be as effective as possible? So that leads us to the next kind of big idea here, which is gathering student data. We use two assessments primarily in our work in schools. The first is called Peli, which is a piece of Acadience Learning, and the second is a CBA, so a curriculum-based assessment that is you can access it in our Project Ready curriculum guide, and it is specific for Project Ready. So those are the two pieces that we're going to talk about primarily today in helping to gather student data. So we'll start with Peli here. First, I should give you this disclaimer. We are not associated with Peli in any way, but we do find that it's really thorough. It gives us wonderful information about our students' needs, their oral language needs and their alphabetic needs. We see their skill level very clearly through Peli. And it's an assessment that's really fun and engaging. It's in a storybook format. So you sit down with an individual student and you share a story with them, and you do activities within that story and get really great information about them. So we do really highly recommend that you look into Peli as a possible assessment for your classroom. But preschools that don't have Peli will need to kind of collect this data using different assessments. And I know that preschools often have different assessments that they use to gather data on their students. So we'll just talk a little bit about what Peli does and what Peli gives us information on. so that you know the kind of information that we have about our students to help us form our small groups. Okay, so Peli is an assessment designed for 3 to 5-year-olds. It's administered 3 times a year. There is a progress monitoring feature that can be done in between those 3 benchmark periods. It's a storybook embedded assessment, like we talked about, and it gives us an idea of essential pre-literacy and oral language skills that are needed for kindergarten. It does measure alphabet knowledge, vocabulary and oral language, phonological awareness, and a student's listening comprehension. So when we use Peli, we get information on all of those pieces there. The curriculum-based assessment was designed by Dr. Amy Murdoch, who you just saw there, to be administered with preschool students. And it can be administered at any point in the year, but it's particularly helpful at the beginning of the year and giving you some information about your students. And it is designed to gather information about student skills while it's very playful and highly engaging. And it does measure their knowledge of colors, counting, numbers, shapes, number recognition, the alphabet song, and name writing. And you'll see in a bit, we have a video of me doing the CBA with my youngest, and it takes about 8 minutes to get all of that information using this CBA. So very highly engaging, playful, just a fun, quick way to gather some information about your students. So this is what the CBA looks like. I know you probably can't read that. It's very tiny writing, but you can find this on our website, again, within our curriculum guide. And here is a video here. I just want to show you a few minutes of this so that you can see how engaging it is, how it's set up to be really playful and fun. It is not a professional video, so I apologize for that. You'll see some distractions in the video, which is, we're at home in this video, but as you know, when you're in the preschool classroom, there are lots of distractions happening. So I just want to show you a quick clip here so that you can see this is a very tired child about 5 minutes before his bedtime who is really enjoying this this playful game with me. So Amy, you may need to jump in here to help me with this, but I am going to give it a try. Let me know if you can't see or hear it,
Okay.
please. Okay. All right.
I can hear it. I want to turn it up.
Here's the first one. This is my friend, Mr. Teddy Bear. Can you say hi, Mr. Teddy Bear? I have some special things for us in this day, but first thing is block.
You know what, Rosie, the sound went out, but you could probably just narrate a little bit what you're doing.
Wonderful. So sorry about that. So here I'm showing
it's kind
him
of coming
the
in and out. You can kind of hear it a tiny bit, just so you know.
Oh, interesting.
At least for me.
Mr. Teddy Bear is asking Solly to give him different colors of blocks. Solly, color block. B block. Q. Q. Solly, please give me the black block. Is it still cutting in and out, Amy?
Yeah, you can hear it. You can hear it a little bit, but I think you get the idea. Yeah, I think it's helpful.
Thank you for being gentle. So, all done with colors. Now, let's try something else. Ready? Okay, what is it?
And I think another key thing is it's playful, but also, as you can see, Rosie's not telling Solly the correct answer. It's just, the assessment information about what he knows.
Okay. Yes. We don't need Mr. Teddy. Count those for me, please. So we will stop it there and we'll go back to our presentation. Can everyone hear me now? Can you hear me, Amy? Okay, perfect.
hear
I
you.
just wanted to make sure. So yes, just like Amy said there, you want to see that we're just quickly and playfully gathering information. He knows all of those colors that we talked about. He can count a group of 2, he can count a group of 3, and the group of 5, he kind of struggled on there. He didn't quite do the one-to-one correspondence. So you can see how we handle that and take that quick assessment. Again, it's fun, it's playful, it's fast moving. We were able to get through all of those pieces in about 8 minutes there. So if you're interested in doing this CBA with your students, it is available in our curriculum guide. So just kind of a fun, quick way to gather information about your students that is helpful in gathering that small group data. Yes.
Rosie, can I add one more thing? So I just wanted to say, when we created the CBA, we did it in knowledge that we were also collecting Peli data. So our curriculum-based assessment does not include the crucial skills of phonological awareness, listening comprehension, alphabet knowledge, because we had that data from Peli. So this is really to collect key indicators that we knew that we needed to teach in the curriculum that were not already covered in Peli. So I just wanted to make that clear, because if you're not using Peli, you do want to think about how to collect assessment information about those other skills. And as Rosie said, we didn't feel like we needed to create something because Peli works really nicely. And it's that wonderful global outcome measure, so you can see growth across the year, which is really crucial. The curriculum-based assessment is really just to help a teacher know what skills does this child know or not know, so that I can teach them and focus the small group instruction accordingly. The other thing I wanted to point out, because we know preschool, because we're in preschools, we know you guys are held accountable for standards and a lot of different things. And so in our schools in Ohio, we also have standards that teachers have to assess, and they actually have requirements to assess all of the standards. And so what our teachers did, they used both Peli and the CBA to replace other assessments that they were doing that collected this information. So we think that's really important with assessment. We don't want to spend a ton of time assessing. We want our assessment to be super efficient. And so think about, if you use this, what can you take away from your assessment plate?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying. That's very helpful there. All right. So now we've got this great information. Like Amy said, we've used Peli in our classrooms. We have this great information about our students' alphabet knowledge and phonological awareness and oral language skills. And with the CBA, we've got some information about their math skills, a little bit about their knowledge of the alphabet song, lots of those little pieces there that are included in the CBA. So now we can take that information and use it to create data-driven instruction. So meaning in our instruction, we are looking at our students' needs, what we know about them, what we know about their skill levels, and creating these homogeneous groups and heterogeneous groups that really get at each student's needs. Okay, whoops, that didn't work there. So we'll go back to this little model here again of our 2 teachers. And remember, like Amy said, they don't have to be 2 certified teachers. It can be a teacher and an assistant, or a teacher and a volunteer, whatever you have available to you. And let's take a look at these pieces here, the alphabetics and the small group. Those are the 2 that where we really want to target our students' specific needs. So the question is kind of, how do we do that? How do we put them in small groups? So this is an example of what a data chart from Peli looks like. So you can see we have information about our students are listed down the left side there. They're all blacked out so you can't see names, but each of those lines represents an individual student. And you can see that we see their alphabet knowledge. That's what AK stands for. PA is phonological awareness. VOL is vocabulary oral language, COMP is comprehension, and then we see a language index score and a composite score. So we can see our student scores kind of going across, and then they are assigned a color. So red being significantly below benchmark, yellow being kind of right about at benchmark, but maybe a little bit below, and then green meaning they're at benchmark or above. So we can use those colors to really kind of clearly help us to identify our students with the most significant needs, okay? And it helps us to kind of put them into our alphabetics groups and our other small groups accordingly. So we use, and we recommend that you use something like this, or anything you have that is similar that can kind of help you track these things. And this will be sent to you in this is a word I can never say. An editable version of this will be sent to you with the link from the video recording of today. So you can have access to this as well, and you can change it up to fit your needs. But we use, and we encourage our teachers to use, this kind of tracking form for their small groups. It is a weekly form, so they would print out a new one for each week. It helps to kind of track their students' current skills, their students' needs, and also helps them to track the number of lessons per week. So these are pictures of the outcomes of my son's small group, or sorry, not small group, but his CBA. So you can see on here that he knows 7 of the 7 colors that we assessed him on. He knows he can count 4 of the 5 numbers that I asked him to count. He knows 6 of the 10 numbers, 1 to 10, and he knows 5 of the 5 shapes. He can recognize his name among classmates' names. He could not sing the alphabet song, and he could not write his name. So we can take that information, and here's the rest of it here. So you can kind of see how we're just really quickly jotting down notes, very simply jotting down notes as we're doing that assessment. But we can take that information and we can also use it to help us with filling out this form and helping us to form our small groups. So let's start for kind of talking about the alphabetics section and how exactly I'm realizing I am in the morning sun here, kind of glared out there. In the alphabetics section, remember again that we are forming our groups homogeneously. So students are in groups by skill level. And what's really important is that our students with the most needs, so meaning our students with the lowest skill level, we want to meet with them daily, as often as possible. We are meeting with those students daily in alphabetics. Our students with the least needs, meaning they have the highest skill level, we want to meet with at least 2 times per week in alphabetics. Every day, Maria talked about this last week in her webinar on meeting needs of students with exceptional needs. We want to start every day with a plan. So this teacher is going to do alphabetics, and she is going to meet with this group of students and this group of students. Starting with a really careful plan every day is really important. Knowing who is going to be responsible for what that day, who we're really trying to see, making sure we've targeted. So students with the most needs, the lowest skills, we are making sure we're meeting every day. Students with higher needs, we can be a little bit more flexible. If they want to see us every day, or if we're able to see them every day, awesome. But we're making sure we're really targeting our students with the most needs here. So in this alphabetics section, you can see group 1 is our red group, or our students with the most needs. We have one group of yellow students and one group of green students here. Of course, your class may not look like that. You might find that you have 2 groups of students with really high alphabetics needs. So you can edit this form to fit your students' needs. But a reminder again, we really want to be hitting our students with the most needs every single day. Students with the least amount of needs or the highest skills, we don't have to meet with every day. But each time we do meet with our students, we want to circle the day of the week up here. So if we see our red group, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we want to circle or kind of fill in that square so we can be reminded, we did see these students each day. If something comes up, a fire drill or something like that, maybe lots of students in that group are absent, so we don't really get to see that group that day. we want to really be able to see clearly what we were able to do. So reminder again, we start the day with this plan of exactly what we're going to do. And then it's preschool, it's school. Some things happen, things come up, but we really want to make sure we're tracking exactly how often we are able to meet with those students. Okay. The next section here are math small group. We have them broken down by groups again, but we don't have them color coordinated here because Peli doesn't assess on math. So those colors, I should clarify on here, are related to their Peli scores. Like we looked at the chart there. So students who are red have the most needs, yellow are right about benchmark, and green, they are on or above benchmark. So Peli doesn't give us that information about our students in math. So we are forming these groups based on the CBA and kind of our qualitative assessments that we're doing of our students all the time, seeing where their math skills are. So you can write down here, there's a spot to write down specifically what skill you're working on in math. And then again, a spot to circle or mark exactly where you were able to meet with each of those groups. So at the end of the week, you're able to look at it and you are able to see exactly how many times you were able to see each group. Again, with math, our students with the most needs, we're really trying to meet with daily. Our students with the least needs about 2 times per week. And we are starting every day with our plan so we know exactly who we are wanting to see that day, exactly what small groups we are hoping to implement. And we are keeping careful track of what we are able to do there so that we can later look back and see exactly what we were able to do. Okay, and then this section here, the oral language, Sammy telling terrific tales, or the reread. We do have spaces here for writing in names of students who are considered red, yellow, and green there. So it's a little bit confusing, so I'll clarify here. We know these oral language groups, we really want to be heterogeneous. So we have a mix of skill levels within each group as we're meeting, but we do want to remember and to plan carefully around our students with the most needs. So we want to put our students' names in here so that we can remember who has the highest needs, who has the least oral language skills here. Those are my students that I really want to be getting to every day. I want to be inviting them to come join us in that small group every single day so that they're having lots of oral language practice time here. And then our students who are kind of around benchmark or above benchmark, I can invite them every day, but it isn't as much, I don't want to say it's not as much of a priority, but those students we don't necessarily need to see every day in these small group oral languages. Like we said before, it's not harmful. It doesn't hurt them if they come every day, but we really want to make sure we're meeting the needs of our students who are below benchmark there so that we are making sure we're seeing them every day, giving them lots of oral language practice time. Yes, Amy.
Sorry to jump in, but I thought
absolutely not. Just jump in anytime. You do not have to wait for me.
No, I thought one point, because I've gotten this question before around, and I think you covered it so nicely, but I wanted to punctuate one part.
Yes.
With the oral language and with all the groups, really. Sometimes we get the question of, oh, well, why do we need to keep track of the kids who are doing fine? How many groups we're meeting with them? And as Rosie said, we want to meet with them frequently as well. We have to meet with those kids that we know need some real skill work. But it's also important that we are meeting with all of our kids across time. And we all know we have some kids who are doing fine and are fine working by themselves or not coming to small group. But for other reasons, we want them to be in small groups. So I really love this tracking sheet because it also helps us keep track of, oh, little Rosie, gosh, I haven't met with her at all this week because she's not the one who's running up and saying, is it my turn? Is it my turn? And so we want to make sure we include all of our kids and that, nobody, because it's so hard as a teacher to keep track of, oh, who did I meet with across the whole week? And so I think this also helps us make sure that we are including in small groups. So we have that time, they have that experience for all kids across the week.
Absolutely. Great points. Yeah. So the way you would track on this piece, the oral language, piece is just kind of putting a check mark or some kind of symbol next to that student's name any day that you're able to meet with them. So we're not meeting with, all of our red students at one time here. We are kind of having groups that are coming together from all of our skill levels. And we just want to make sure that we are putting, somehow noting that we saw this student, and this student all together on Monday for a small group oral language, if that makes sense. So tracking all of our students and who was able to be seen for an oral language practice activity. Okay, so that tracking form is available to you. It will be sent to you at the end of the webinar so that you can use it and you can make it fit your needs. But again, we're really tracking how many times we are able to see each student. And this helps us to make decisions later as well. We can look and we can see, well, this student I thought we were seeing frequently, and when I look at this, I see, oh, we really weren't seeing that student as much as we thought, or, oh, this student is on benchmark and they're doing great. And then the next time we do a benchmark assessment, we realize, oh, they're not quite on benchmark anymore. We can kind of look back and see, oh, we didn't see them every day, or we didn't see them very frequently in the small group oral language. Let's make sure that we're really targeting them in this kind of next round of instruction so we can make sure we're seeing them more frequently. Okay. All right, so guess what? That's it. That's all that I have for you. So that is kind of an overview of how to fit all of those pieces and the routines into your day for Project Ready. So do we have some time for questions, or are you up for that, Amy? Do we have any questions in the chat that we have missed here?
Absolutely. We are open for questions, and I did enable the chat, so please put your questions in the chat if you have any. I did also in the chat put the direct link for Acadience Peli, and for those listening who don't have access to the chat, it's just acadiancelearning.org. And then if you go to the Acadience Learning homepage, you're going to go to Acadience Reading, and then you'll see Preschool Peli. So that's or you can also just Google it. It comes up pretty easily. So the other frequently question that I got, it's not in the chat, but I was thinking of some frequent questions that we get, is just about how to make priorities of, what to teach to who, because you do have such a small amount of time. And so I think one of the things is just to kind of sit down with your team and think about what the needs are in your time. As Rosie said, we know, gosh, in preschool, there are so many different schedules and half day and full day, so many different kinds of programs. And we can tell you, we have done Peli in our project right now. We actually have a number of both full day and half day programs. And the funny thing is, the instructional time is not dramatically different because they're preschoolers, right? Even if they're full day, there's nap time and snack and going outside and all those important things. So the nice thing I think about our set of materials is there's a lot there that you can make choices on. And so if you have more time, do more small groups, right? If you have less time, then of course you have to prioritize for your kids, what are the big needs, and making sure that you're, balancing the different skills and how we address them. So I just wanted to kind of say that, because we get that a lot, and we wish we had a hard and fast answer like this, and this, and we have some guidance, of course, but ultimately I think it takes a good preschool team thinking about their day and thinking about, which small groups to focus on for that week and that amount of time. So.
And I think one thing that we have talked about in other webinars, but didn't really cover as closely in this one, is that those small group oral languages, there are so many for variety. So telling terrific tales, word lists, the reread, those really, all of those are in there for variety. So keeping things fresh and fun and engaging for your students. Okay, so you don't need to necessarily make sure that you are hitting all of those small group oral languages within one day. You just want to make
Yeah.
sure you're providing a small group oral language opportunity every day, remembering to hit your students with the highest needs every day with a small group oral language. You don't necessarily have to have your students with the highest needs doing all three of them every day.
Yeah, that's a great point. The other question, I've actually wrote that question down, Rosie, so you hit it, so thank you.
Perfect.
The other question that I think we get a fair amount and that we spend some time talking with our teams about is in terms of that, you know, having different adults doing different things, thinking about the kind of strengths of your teaching team. And so of all of our routines, and you guys have probably already picked up on this if you've looked at our materials carefully. We find that alphabetics is the one that typically is best done by the most trained person, just because there's phonological awareness work and, you know, the letters and sounds and the practice routines. Not that we've had high success with instructional assistants without deep education background doing it and volunteers. So we've had the range, but that one seems to be one that the higher skilled in terms of educational skill and background seems to be best placed with that person. The other thing we would just encourage kind of along that same lines is if you have like a new instructional assistant or a new volunteer, start with one routine and just have them kind of really master and learn that one. And really all the oral language routines, we've had good luck with that, telling terrific tales or CME, and really getting their confidence in that and having them be in charge of that for, you know, a month or even a month and a half or 2 months, and then possibly show them a new routine and train them on that. Again, I think that's probably logical, but I know we've kind of had to help some of our teams just kind of think through that and think about how best to use the people that they do have.
Absolutely. Do we have
Yeah,
anything in the chat?
Just some nice thank yous. So we appreciate
Oh,
we
wonderful.
appreciate your time and thank yous. The last thing I will say, and Rosie talked about this when she talked about setting up your classroom at the very beginning, is I know in some preschool classrooms doing small groups is kind of what you do and it's old hat and this is like, okay, great, here's some different materials. And in some preschool classrooms, that's not something that's done. And that can be a little, you know, kind of something to think through. And so just as a reminder from that first webinar that we did is the ability for a teacher to pull a small group is really going to be dependent on how your classroom's set up and making sure that kids who aren't with you in your small group know how to utilize the classroom materials and that those classroom materials are engaging and fun and not in need of adult guidance to use. So sometimes I feel like this webinar, it's kind of nice to go back to that first webinar and kind of think about some of those things, because we know in order for a small group to go well, the teacher can't be constantly pulled to kids in the classroom who need support. So thinking about that. And in that first webinar, Rosie did such a nice job even thinking about like where you station your small group. So if you and a teacher and an instructional assistant are both doing small groups, like strategically place that so you can kind of keep an eye on who else is in the classroom and their, you know, play at centers or independent play, whatever, you know, whatever the classroom is set up for can be monitored while you're doing your small group, of course. So I just wanted to refer you back to that webinar if this is new to you and you're thinking, oh my goodness, how do I even do small groups in my classroom? There were some good tips in that first webinar to think about as well.
And I think I'm going to piggyback off of that and refer you to Maria's webinar from last week about supporting students with exceptional needs. As we talked about, you always want to go in with your plan of the small groups you're going to hit that day. That should always be kind of the default setting, is having that plan. And we have learned from implementation in a variety of schools that a lot of behavioral challenges can be mitigated by having students who you have some behavioral challenges with involved in small groups as much as possible, because the more engaged they are in fun activities, the fewer behavioral challenges you find or you have in your classroom. And that's what we're finding kind of across the board in all of the classrooms we're in. And we are in a variety of schools. So the more you can engage your students in the fun activities, we're finding the fewer behavioral challenges we have.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Rosie. That's perfect. Yeah. Great.
Okay, I don't see any
No?
questions there. Yeah, so
Very good.
my email was available at the end of the slideshow, and you are going to get a copy of the slideshow. So if you have any questions, if you go back or you're trying to get started in your classroom and you come across questions, please feel free to email me. I am more than happy to touch base with you about any questions that you have. So thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, and just a reminder, our last webinar is a makeup session next week from our math session that we had to cancel around the holidays. So we will send that out. I'll send the link out again when I send this recording and materials out. But if you're interested in the math sections of Project Ready, that is what we'll go over next week. So February 4th.
Great.
Same time.
Yes.
You.
Okay.
Thanks, Rosie. This was fabulous. And thank you all for attending. Yeah, have a great weekend, everyone.
You too. Thank you.